Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. There's also PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate forum. Now, we're currently in the in-between stages between two debates, so I'm going to pass over to the panel and you can enjoy the dulcet tones of whoever is in there while I set up for the next live show.
Well, thank goodness for the Flat Earth Debate. Keep me listening to while I'm plodding. That was wicked yesterday. Very cool. Enjoying it, boys. Yeah, I'm probably going to do the same and head off and get some lunch and then listen to the second. You got a second show?
Yeah. Cool. It'll start in about, I don't know, 5 minutes. I'll get myself a coffee and then we'll start the next live show. It
literally was just to say congrats, mate. Well chuffed for you, pal. And I'll catch you all guys probably when I get back next week. But
just so you know, Adam, this new one, Adam, is a sleeper.
Enjoy yourself, man.
Just so you know.
You what, bro?
He's a sleeper. We were praying to the gods that we had one that slept.
Don't get too cocky too early. She's an Oakley, isn't she? And therefore born not to sleep.
Well, we shall see. Thanks, Adam.
No worries, guys. Take it easy.
See you in a bit.
Bye.
Later, brother.
Yeah, we need to. The ballers are all over me on that solar eclipse video. They hate it, and I don't know whether it's because we shouldn't see it or we should see it, but we definitely should see the casting of a shadow.
I agree. Now that you've actually,
that's probably why they hate it, because they know that should match their model.
Yeah,
it doesn't. It's ridiculous.
well, it's basically the same as looking at crepuscular rays. So you'll see that the shadow that comes from a cloud, it's very easy to see. So you would expect to see that. You should expect to see it. And when you actually showed the animation, it clicked immediately. And I thought, shit, yeah, you should see that. Why don't you?
What do you think about that video, Ranty?
Well, from what I've seen, I only saw the animation that you showed, but the animation that you showed, to me, looks how it should look. You don't really think about it until you see something. So you don't always, question it. You see you see reality and you don't really think, unless you've done that animation, and then you look at the animation and you think, shit, that is how it should be. Why isn't it like that?
Ever since the last eclipse in, what was it, 2017, I was already into flat Earth and all this stuff, and I was expecting to see it. I was just like, if I'm going to see this solar eclipse, it should look the way that animation just showed. And that's exactly the opposite of what I saw. So yeah, I completely get it. I'm behind this 100%.
I think what the people in chat need to be reminded is, what did we see with the eclipse? And we didn't see a moon, for starters. There was no moon in the sky. We didn't see any casting of any shadows. And them two things that are missing and massive. You need the fucking moon if there's a fucking solar eclipse. Can't have a solar eclipse if there's no moon.
What would be really interesting is if you got a really, really bright light and tried to recreate the eclipse by moving something that was, distinguishable. Let's say a plate with markings on it that you could see from one side. And then
but you'd have to do it to scale, because the distances involved, the moon is less than 1% of the distance to the sun. So you'd have to get a P being the moon, and then like a light source that's like 400 times the size of it, but like 400 times further back. And that would be effectively the same. And you know what's going to happen if you put a P 1% of the distance to the sun, you're going to see the P.
See, but when I've asked people, why don't we see the moon, moving or about to move in front of the sun, and I'm told, oh, it's because the sun is so bright, and the moon is so small that you're just not going to see it. It's like putting a quarter in front of a spotlight or something. I've been told that a few
Right.
times.
Like it
But the whole
starts out
point
like a
is
tunnel almost.
exactly. But the whole point is they're at the point where they're the same size where one is going to obstruct the other. So how are you telling me it's too small to see? You should just be able to see it right there, the big shadow right in front of this light, and if we should see the shadow move in front of the light and then move out of the light. We don't see any. All we see is some type of weird disk that just covers the sun and then uncovers it with nothing moving away from it. How does that work in reality if that's just a big rock?
Very true. We all been muted.
No.
All right.
What the thing that's kind of weird about the eclipse thing is that the sun is like, it's not a spotlight. It's like shining in all directions. So how does an object that is kind of like it's not a spotlight, but it's casting light in all directions, are you able to obstruct that like from one vantage point? Because I can understand how you could do that with like a flashlight. You could put something in front of it and it's going to obstruct it. But if you're talking about like a bulb or something that doesn't have like something encasing it, can you really obstruct that? Is that possible?
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Like there should just be light coming from behind it, right? Because it's
exactly
400 times further away. But the sky completely goes dark. That's a little weird. I see what you mean,
that would only be possible if you're talking about a flashlight.
Guys, what do you think about the way that the sun's heat actually reaches the Earth? As in,
I think it heats up on entry within our atmosphere. I don't think it's hot as it approaches.
Yeah, that's what they say. They say that it's radiation. So the radiation travels through the cold of space, hits the atmosphere here, and then turns to heat to warm us up.
Hey, John.
Do you actually believe that shit?
I don't know. I think if there's more resistance in the atmosphere and it causes light to change because of the resistance, I think that might make sense. Because how else would you get heat to propagate through a vacuum?
Hang on, wait a minute. Are you presuming that we're doing it through a vacuum?
The vacuum doesn't absorb any heat or anything from the light. A light can shine through a vacuum. But
don't they claim though that the light kind of gets magnified by the atmosphere the same way that a magnifying glass kind of like intensifies the rays of the sun? So that's what increases the heat as it travels to Earth?
No. It's just the sunlight.
Is that the excuse as to why the astronauts aren't cooking on the ISS? They're not being cooked alive?
The sunlight is just absorbed by matter, a little bit by the air, a little bit more by liquid, and a lot by solids. And that's just how it works. That's where the heat is transferred with the matter. And it's not amplified due to some kind of looking glass-like effect. No. Just on the Earth is where the most of the light is absorbed and transformed into heat.
Is that waves
so it
or
doesn't
particles?
Originate as heat. It's just light that's converted into heat.
As it interacts with matter, yes.
Oh, interesting.
It either reflects or it absorbs, and then depending on the matter, can be chemical interaction. And the most common is heat.
Is that waves or particles?
Oh, it's a beam. An infinitely divisible beam. Instant connection.
What's up, John?
What's happening, Vanilla?
Hey, John.
Hey, sir. Hey,
Wait,
sorry about
Quantum
the
Eraser,
the Burke
Quantum
nonsense,
Eraser is
man.
on here. I don't see anybody on here.
Yeah,
Probably
what
Like
is
I
John?
said-
How's John
probably
doing?
on
Is he
Skype.
joining through Skype?
It's probably on
Yeah, I
Skype.
did. Yeah, I did. So, hey, Tony, sorry about the Burke stuff, man. I stepped into that one.
Sorry about the what?
When I messaged you, I said, "Hey," and then I called you a Burke. I didn't mean to call you that.
Don't worry about it, man.
I
Don't
take
worry
back.
about
I
it.
take that back.
Nah, don't worry about it. It's cool.
All right. So, what's going on? What's going on, gentlemen? Who's all in here?
Lots of people in here. I want to ask a quick question before the
Chris,
show starts.
Earth, Ranty, Sleeping Warrior, Slick James, Theo, and me, Arwin.
Yeah. Have you guys ever wondered what's underneath us? Like, just based on, I know we don't have a model or anything like that, but it's just curious to think because we're not just like a pancake that's floating around in space. Like, what's actually holding, all of this stuff up? Like, what is the Earth sitting on? Have you ever thought about that before?
It's
Yes.
turtles, man, all the way down.
You said turtles?
No, I think the space is self-contained. There's simply a limited confine, and maybe that the bottom of the Earth may be above us at a very high altitude, and it's just a confined space.
Well, I don't think so because anything physical has to be sitting on something. Like we're obviously not floating. So
Sitting on
what is this thing sitting on? Sitting on itself?
Yes.
I don't know about that.
Well,
The answer to that question is nobody can ever possibly know. So we have to guess. And
We
we can guess
could.
all day.
you could
But
technically prove if that's true or not
How or when?
by either somehow using a new way of propulsion. Penetrate the upper layers and see if you hit a solid bottom that happens to be stone-like or whatever, and potentially dig down, try to coordinate that position, and maybe you could dig right through the earth and then end up there. Then you know it's looping.
You're right. That's the only possible way to dig down. They claim that the furthest we've dug down is like, I think 8 miles or something. I don't know if that's true or not because, that's just what we're told. It could not be true, but that's the only way to figure it out, I think.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to join the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate forum. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Quantum Eraser, Sleeping Warrior, HEO, Slick James Johnson, Flat Earth, Earth Flattener, Chris, Chocolate Sane, and Arwin, and Ranty. Good to have you all.
Good morning.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Yep.
Hey,
So,
is it Theo? I couldn't see the T because it was on the split of your face. So how you doing, Theo?
Not too bad.
What side of the fence do you sit, Theo?
Well, I'm a flat Earth realm idealist.
Idealist?
Exactly.
What is your idealism?
Well, before we get into
Well-
that, sorry, Theo. So we're going to do a bit of housekeeping before we get into that. Then I'm more than happy to discuss your theology on what the Earth might be. You're not a globe head. That was all I was rooting for. There is a gap on the panel, though, if somebody wants to join from the globe side to take part in housekeeping. So any signs of curvature?
No.
Only obstruction.
Nah.
Nope.
Just for clarity, obstruction and curvature are not the same.
Indeed. Regular obstruction that we see at a far distance cannot be emulated in an orthographic view.
Oh, I got a
Unless
point.
you presume curvature.
Oh, we got a new one. Go on, go ahead, Theo.
When you're looking at an observation, you do not see obstruction. Obstruction assumes a physical presence of an object interfering with the light reaching your eye. If the visual data is lost, that's all you can confirm.
I see what you're saying. You're saying calling it an obstruction is inaccurate because that would imply there's something physically in between you and it obscuring it, which is actually the case in some cases with waves. However, what you're saying is the assumption that the non-appearance of the bottom of an object in the distance isn't necessarily correct to assume obstruction. Is that what you're saying?
That's absolutely correct. And it drives me nuts whenever you're talking to Brenda and she says obstruction and you're like, yes, it's obstruction. And I'm like, no, it isn't.
Good point. Well made.
You concede the point obstruction, which sends their mind on that, avenue, thinking that you've conceded, yes, it is an obstruction that's there, so it must be a physical object.
Yeah, we should use the
It is a visual obstruction.
Well, we say things disappear, which they do, from the bottom up. Well, that's not implying any sort of obstruction, so maybe using that slightly elongated terminology of something has disappeared from the bottom up, and then you can attribute the cause, if you will, if you are to assert that it's just too far to see in angular size, or the weather conditions, or the waves, whatever. Oh, I didn't get to that on the other show, Anthony. So on the last show, I was saying you listed off a whole bunch of different things that could cause obstruction from the bottom up, and I was going to tell you about a guy called Soundley's Heroes, a guy with a Scottish accent that came on yesterday, and he listed off about 30 things that had been attributed to things disappearing into the distance, but he didn't make any point at the end, he just dropped. And I'm like, well done for listing off all the multitude of things that don't get accounted for in the geometric-only non-perspective curve calculator. Well done.
But one point on that.
Heroes is a troll, a ball earth troll, right?
Yeah, but he was listing off, this is what flat earthers have attributed to bottom-up obstruction. Things disappearing from the bottom up.
You almost did it.
Almost
I
did it, almost.
I got a good alternative. We could call it apparent obstruction. It is
Nah, because that
purely
implies it
visual
too.
bits. It
That's even
appears
worse.
from-
You cannot
That's even
call it
worse.
An apparent obstruction.
What, Nathan?
That's even worse.
What? Why?
Well, because you're saying
hey,
it's apparent, right? Well, no.
An obstruction. Sorry.
It appears to obstruct.
That's your
not-
point. Don't let me hijack your point, Theo. I'm not taking any of this credit. Well done.
An obstruction is an obstacle. That means that a physical object is blocking the path of the light. There's no such thing as an apparent obstruction. If there is an obstruction, you would see the physical object, period. For example, if somebody walks behind a trash can when you're in the park and you don't see their legs and you say he's obstructed, well, what's obstructing him? Oh, the trash can right there. That's obstructing him. But if he walks down the field and his legs get cut off bottom up from visual phenomena and you say, oh, he's obstructed. Well, where's the obstruction? I don't see the obstruction. It's not apparent to me that there is an obstruction there.
No, but it's not about. I get the confusion, but I meant that it's
The
more like an
confusion,
impression.
right, but the confusion is on the globe side. And you using the word obstruction feeds their narrative, feeds their
Yeah.
cognitive process.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I totally agree. I think
You,
it's an
when you
excellent
use
point.
that word, the word itself concedes the point.
I completely agree.
Wait a second, but aren't
It's technically specific to optics. We
Yeah, but there's
don't
no
call
obstruction in the
aren't they
optics.
saying
It's another way of
the person
using the word. That's how we've been using
by the
it.
ground, though?
I completely agree. I've just got to get this in, Theo. We are begging the question of obstruction when we use the word obstruction, obviously.
Bingo. Now, that's not to say that visual data isn't necessarily being lost due to obstruction. For example, Ranty was talking about the tidal bore and the bulge. So some of the phenomenon, the observation that you're observing at the moment could be due to obstruction, but it's not necessarily due to obstruction. So to say I'm looking at obstruction is begging the question.
But you are looking at obstruction.
Yeah, but that's
because
all
the
they're
person's
doing
feet
is
are being
begging the
obstructed
question.
by the ground.
Start that statement again, Chris.
No, what I was saying is that you
Looking
are
at-
looking at obstruction
hold on.
because
Are we?
Start that statement again, Chris.
yeah, the person's feet are being obstructed by the ground.
In what example?
In the example that you stated, if someone's like walking away from a camera and their feet start to disappear as they go further towards the horizon, I would argue that their feet are being obstructed by the ground.
But they're not.
So your argument would be
It's apparent.
that ground in between them and the camera is curved in some way or a hill in some way.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's curved, but it is in fact obstructing the person's feet.
Okay, so for a baseline, are you saying that the ground between the camera and the person is level and flat and doesn't raise an elevation between the camera and the feet?
It appears to raise an elevation, even if it's flat, and
Now,
it appears to be obstructing the
physical
person's
reality
feet.
with no appearance whatsoever, just take it as physical reality, is the distance of the span of the ground between the camera and the feet flat and level in your example?
Yeah, it is flat and level.
Okay, then it is impossible in any way, shape, or form for the ground to be obstructing.
Yeah, sorry, Chris.
So what is obstructing the person's feet then, if it's not the ground?
A limitation in angle.
Okay. The light, listen, pay attention. All the light from that person's feet is reaching the camera. Every single bit of light. The difference is the camera is unable to resolve the differences between the light. No light is being obstructed.
Right, this is the diffraction limit. The point that things become too small to see, or the limitation of your angle by lowering the camera closer to the ground or backing away further away from something, reduces the angle, forcing things that are too small to see at the bottom, where the angle's the most limited, to disappear from bottom up. But as Theo correctly points out, and I'm going to back him 100% on this, there is no obstruction. There are exceptions to every rule, like we drew out yesterday in orthographic view, but I'm hopefully going to put this into a concise statement now for you, Theo. So if you describe, as the globe heads do, geometrically, as they assert, there should not be anything between your line of sight on the left-hand side of this page when you look at this item on the right-hand side. So geometrically, there is no obstruction. That's why they assert we should see it. However, we don't. Something is, according to our old rhetoric, obstructing the bottom. But it isn't. There's nothing physically in the way. If you draw out exactly the topology, the ground that you're looking at, and draw a straight line as the globe heads do between point A and point B, there's nothing physically in the way. So as Theo describes it, the light's still reaching the camera, but it's beyond the diffraction limit. You can't resolve that light in that angle, so you don't see it. Hey, Ken, and shout out to Earth is Seriously Flat for the super chat. How you doing, Ken?
Hey, well, maybe you could call it
Doing well.
obstruction then, because it is purely an optical phenomena and not geometrical in any way.
But what this highlights,
So
Arwen, is that we need to
limit the horizon.
But it is one of the effects that come with optics.
Well, it's
You
the
gotta,
plural,
like,
though, isn't it,
point
Armin?
at it somehow.
It's one of the effects. That's the point.
Yes,
it's plural.
exactly. But it's good to be able to pinpoint it somehow, technically.
Exactly.
So why optical obstruction? It's not literal obstruction. It's optical.
Well, no. I've got to get this in.
No.
It might
Zero.
be.
Zilch.
It might be a
What is the
physical obstruction.
diffraction limit?
Obstruction.
What exactly is that? Because I'm not understanding what that is.
I'm saying that there might be a physical obstruction, but it's about figuring out what is actually causing the apparent disappearance of the bottom of something in the distance, usually at the horizon. But ultimately speaking, it may not be something obscuring it. In some instances, it might be a wave due to perspective raised up to the midpoint of the camera that does obscure the thing in the distance, that's smaller by comparison because of its increased distance further into the background. Therefore, it is obstruction due to perspective. The wave raising up. Can you mute if you're not talking, please? So yeah, it could be a wave that's actually obstructing. But when we're saying something has reached the diffraction limit, or you've lowered your camera to such a degree that you have a forced limitation of angle at the bottom, then it's not obstruction that we are seeing when the bottom of something disappears. It's not obstruction, but there might be. It's about figuring it out rather than, this is the main point, blaming it on Earth curve in every single example. It doesn't matter if it's the weather, if it's because of a limitation of the angle, it doesn't matter if the thing's too small to see. It doesn't matter about any of that. It's always Earth curve. One single assertion that covers every single base for everything that we see in the distance disappearing from bottom up. In other words, the reason this is a relevant point is because in their narrative, it's always obstruction. So unless we know 100% for certain that there is a perspective forced obstruction by a wave that's obscuring something considerably smaller in the further background, we shouldn't default to say it's obstruction. We should say something has disappeared from bottom up into the distance. Let's figure out why, so we can actually have a correct assertion of what's caused it, rather than just labelling it apparent obstruction, when that begs their question for them, because in their narrative it's always Earth curve obstruction. So I think you're right, Theo. Let's not use that word. It's a bad word.
And what exactly is the diffraction limit? What does that mean?
The point where something can't be resolved anymore. So where you described the light reaching the camera, but it's too limited in terms of your camera's ability to discern 2 pixels from 1 pixel, that's the diffraction limit. Interference, the point where you can't resolve something.
Right, so Theo's point is that we can't see the person's legs because it's at the diffraction limit. Is that the point that he's trying to make?
If you like, it might not be the case, but his overriding point is that their narrative, it's always, without exception, obstruction. I.e. something between your line of vision with the feet of the thing you're looking at, obstructing the view. So if we start to beg the question, yeah, there might be 1 in 100 instances where the wave is actually obscuring the bottom of something. You know, there's stuff behind this mountain on screen now. We can't see it. Why? Because the mountain's in the way. It's obstructing it, right? Well, they have to have obstruction in every example. So why do we need to beg the question and use that word?
Right. So the diffraction limit, is this the same spot where stuff appears to get like squashed or compressed as well?
No, that's a mistake on our part. So I'll take responsibility for that and say that's my misleading of the audience, because where Ranty and I were arguing about it being a refractive effect caused by atmospheric conditions, I was saying that no, when things reach the diffraction limit, they squash. They don't. That's not what occurs. You either resolve it or you can't resolve it. And that causes things to disappear due to their angular limitation or the diffraction limit. But what you're seeing in terms of the compression and the squashing on the Stenoline boat is a refractive atmospheric effect. Ranty was right. I was wrong. I conceded. Sorry if I've misled anybody.
And all of these effects can only be seen like through cameras, like they can't be seen with your naked eye?
An optical system, so any kind of optical system, your eyeball or a camera or anything like that, with a resolution performance, you understand what that means. Theoretically, it has a limit, and it's called diffraction limited. So at a certain point, that lens will be diffraction limited. Once it reaches that diffraction limit, it can no longer resolve something. I've sent a link in the side chat where you can actually look through all that if you want to take a look at it.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's also,
basically every lens has a diffraction limit. That's it.
Including the eye.
Including the eye.
so can you see the diffraction limit? Well, yes, it's easiest. I'll credit Life is Short for this one because it's him that came up with it. So if you pluck a hair from your head, put it on a table and look at it, you can see it. And then you start very slowly backing away from it. Well, at the point that you can no longer see the hair, your eye can no longer resolve what it would be described in a camera as going from being 2 pixels distinguishable to no pixels. You can't resolve them anymore. So you seeing, or you no longer seeing a hair in the distance is you experiencing the diffraction limit of your eye.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Can I add a caveat to that?
Yeah, you're on fire at the moment, Theo. You can say whatever you like.
Okay, so in that example, that's completely accurate. However, all the light from that object is still reaching the sensor that creates that pixel value. What happens is it's unable to tell the light apart from each other, so it registers all light received as one color on the pixel. So before, where it would be 2 colors, it's now 1 color, yet it's still registering the same light. Just like if you take 2 cans of paint and you mix them together, you now have a new color. You can't tell the difference between the colors anymore.
Yep, absolutely. The light's still traveling. It's still reaching the eye. It's just not resolvable. That's the point.
Right.
And if you were in the same position...
It's not obstructed in any way, shape, or form.
Right, and if you increased your equipment, i.e. the actual resolution limit was increased, then you would see the bottom of that item. So the light's still reaching the lens, but it's incapable of resolving it. But then you go up to a telescope rather than a P900. And what do you know? You can see his feet.
Exactly. There's one additional baseline that I like to throw in there when I start this conversation with anyone, because I mean, I think you'd always agree that a lot of people assume they could see forever. So what I do is I say, can you see 0 degrees? And I get them to concede that it's impossible to see at 0 degrees, because all light would be entering in at the exact same point, indistinguishable from each other. Like a 2-dimensional object, basically, impossible to see. So from that degree, as you scale up from 0, slowly, like 0.000001, then you get into the range where you could possibly be able to see something. And that's when they start to realize, wait a minute, anything in that angle is invisible.
Yeah, this is, again, another shout out to Life is Short. Once you reach the point where you get the globe head to concede that things disappear with distance, they are screwed.
Now, I haven't done the math yet on supposed distances to stars with the angular resolution of the human eye, but I'd be willing to bet that the math works out to where they'd be impossible to see.
Oh, if that was a bet against the heliocentric model, I would actually put my money next to the heliocentric model, because every time this has come up in the past, it always seems to be the case that they've got the mathematics absolutely pegged. I might be wrong, but I would probably put my money next to the globe model in that regard.
Yeah, but that's a good point, but there's a tragic flaw with their model that allows them to fudge these numbers, and that is they assume that the conclusions are correct, that the Earth is a globe and all of their math works. But all the math based exterior to the Earth is ratio based. So all they have to do is just change the ratio and just say, oh, well, that's because that star is bigger. And then you say, well, what about the gravity? And they say, oh, that's because it's less dense. So they can change the numbers and make all the observations seem the same, but it's all ratio based. So if a star becomes bigger, it just becomes less dense, then all the gravity still works.
Yeah, we covered this on the last show. So Anthony was talking about Fight the Flat Earth and his alleged measuring of the distance to the sun. Another shout out to Earth is Seriously Flat for the super chat. Thank you very much indeed for your support. But ultimately speaking, you've got to apply the ratios, Kepler's third law. You there, Anthony?
I am.
Could you pop me on screen, Nath?
Can?
Things we're talking about the diffraction limit.
Sure. You're up.
Okay, so essentially this is a test that's been performed quite a lot, and basically when you get to about 4 meters away from these two images, so basically you could place these two images and walk away, back away 4 meters. When you get to 4 meters away, this top image will look like the bottom image. You won't be able to distinguish the white lines any different to the gray lines. And that's because your eyes cannot resolve anything lower than 0.03 degrees, as stated here. 0.03 degrees is the limit of the human eye. Once you get to that point, which is basically at 4 meters, this will look exactly the same as this.
I want to add that depends on the size of your screen. So for me, it would be considerably more than 4 meters, as I've got an 8-foot screen. So
yeah,
screen dependent.
I'll put it back to 100%, but I actually tested this. So I just walked away about 5 minutes ago and had a look. Went to around about 4 meters away, and it's true. I couldn't tell any difference between the two. This top image looked exactly the same as the bottom image.
It's the equivalent of the hair, though, isn't it? It's the equivalent of Life is Short's example with the hair. You've just got lots of strands of hair in this example.
Yes.
Randy, do you want to cite where that's come from? I can see a .edu thing. Just talk us through that, because it's got the word Google overlaid on top of it, and I can't see it.
It says stokes.byu.edu, so for education.
Right, notice that this is not somebody like Fight the Flat Earth or Wolfie 6020. This is somebody that's in university at graduate level, at least. It looks that way. There's a difference.
Yeah. And it also quotes a very nice 0.03 degrees. Now, I know that Life is Short, he says it's 0.02 degrees. So, it's very close, either or. Anything, once you go to the 0.01 or 0.0001, then obviously you're talking things that can't be resolved. And I addressed that in the video that I released yesterday, in response to Rory and his claims that the curve calculators include perspective, and I say that they don't. So if you want to check that out, head on over.
The thing is, Zach, Good Times for All, has already claimed that. Ranty's now claimed it too. Rory seems to have gone very quiet. Ballers don't seem to be calling Rory out for getting this wrong. And in fact, actually, it appears that Mick West has covered over the cracks for him by changing the Metabunk curve calculator. Where's the intellectual honesty from Ballers on this one? Because Ballers claim that they call each other out. Well, who's calling Rory out? Because I'm not seeing anybody calling Rory out. Why is he not getting attacked by Fight the Flat Earth, for example? Or, I don't know, morons. Where is it? Because it's clearly the case that there's two missing pieces of perspective from the curve calcs. Objects get smaller as a function of distance, and when we apply the hidden height, we don't apply it to the object at that distance. We apply it to the absolute height as though it's touching your nose. That's clearly wrong. That's one element. And the second element is what Ranty's talking about right here, right now, the resolution. Both are missing. Now, if the Ballers are the way that they proclaim they are, why are none of the Ballers calling him out? Where's the videos of hate? Come on, Rory's made a mistake. It's not that big of a deal, but where's the intellectual honesty? Are the Ballers just going to ignore it and hope it goes away? Not on.
Say that, not that big a deal, but Ranty's hoping for $5,000 out of this, you realise?
Yeah, I'm going to share it.
He's never going to get it, let's be honest. Rory will never admit he's wrong.
$5,000 is nothing.
It doesn't matter. He's never going to admit he's wrong.
Yeah, but I bet a Glober $1 quadrillion.
Did they pay up?
No, I bet him, so I would have to pay up.
Okay.
And he thought he got me, so he wrote back, "Oh, I'm going to have my lawyers contacted." And I told him, "Bro, you must have a very low EQ if you think I have $1 quadrillion.
Sure.
Come on, where's all the ballers challenging Rory on this? Because Rory's clearly got it wrong. Ballers know he's got it wrong. Ballers are saying nothing and keeping quiet. Where's the intellectual honesty here? Come on.
Yeah, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Didn't the name give it away, Rory? Geometric calculation? Bonehead.
Yeah, geometric being not perspective, Rory, just in case you didn't join the dots.
Can we all give a little slow clap for Rory?
Clap retracted.
We should call him Drury, as in Drury, because the guy's got this like sneaky like approach to him that if he'd have just asked the question, if he'd have joined and said, "Look, guys, I'm a baller. I don't think that the Earth's flat. Can someone explain where perspective does not fit in the calculator?" We'd have just told him. But because he's done this like smarmy, sneaky, seedy kind of sadistic approach to his video, which is kind of it's bad. I don't understand why he would do it this way, but this is his demeanor, and it just makes him look really creepy in my eyes.
I want to do another shout out. Earth is Seriously Flat Super Chatter said, "Exit the Matrix, May 25th, 26th, 2019, Las Vegas, IPS." So shout out to IPS. Thank you very much for the super chat. Earth is Seriously Flat.
What do you think about Mick West changing his Metabunk curve calculator and omitting bulge from it, Nathan?
Well, he did his best.
I think that's the biggest change he's made. That's the most significant change he's made. Nathan, do you agree?
Well, the bulge is the thing we've just been discussing, right? It's the obstruction they assume. Maybe he's just realised that it's just a difficult point to get past when we say, "Where's the 170-foot bulge that's obscuring the view?" Well, just remove that awkward detail and then you don't have to deal with it anymore, right? The actual obstruction that they're talking about and trying to prove, well, they're not trying to prove it. We already know he doesn't need any of it, right? As soon as someone arrives on that site, they're automatically begging the question and assuming, the outcome is set for them, and every outcome will be a geometric, perspective exclusive, globe Earth proof, right? So they're going to beg the question regardless. It doesn't matter what he puts on there.
How do they verify the observation?
They don't. They assume their outcome. They assume the Earth is a sphere, use an R value, and then compare geometrically to a perspective view. So they take a side elevation, use the mathematics of whole numbers, not perspective angular size, and then say the effect of angular size, objects getting smaller with distance, is actually Earth curve. But because they've assumed their outcome at the beginning, they've already got a radius value, they already know the Earth's a sphere according to that maths, then they're going to have an outcome that's spherical. So it makes so absolutely no difference really what he puts in there. As soon as you start using it, you're begging the question.
So
yeah,
so
something else I didn't understand.
Photograph?
Like balls obstructing us. That the Globers talk about, like, do we live on a zigzag Earth or do we live on an Earth that has like speed bumps? Because like we're observing the horizon from different areas. So if there's a bulge from everywhere that you observe the horizon, that would mean that there's like speed bumps we're looking at. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, ever changing bulges at varying different heights depending on your altitude, which if it was a sphere would be the case and it would be observably obvious. It isn't. It's just they're claiming the horizon is the leading edge of a sphere they presuppose. So the horizon is always the top of the bulge. Well, that's got two problems. Number one, it's automatically assuming the outcome. The leading edge of the bulge is the sphere that they claim is the horizon. So it's circular reasoning. The second main problem... Oh, bear with me a second, sorry.
Did I hear correctly that Mick West supposed to have some type of debate with Nathan Thompson? Did I hear that?
No.
Well, Nathan Thompson's going to get his ass kicked because he's not a good debater.
I think he might do, yeah.
I don't know much about him. I haven't really heard, like, I know about him, but I haven't heard him debate or anything, so that's why I was kind of asking.
Well, he got wrecked on the Non Sequitur show.
I hope that Nathan at least comes to Nathan I hope Nathan Thompson comes to Nathan Oakley, and if he's going to have a conversation with Mick West, somebody get to Nathan Thompson and explain that he needs to speak to Nathan Oakley to know of all the flaws and faults with the Mick West calculator thing, because there's like 3 major ones.
Well, how about just
Yeah, but
showing
hasn't he
him?
been around for a while though?
How about just
Nathan
showing
Thompson?
him the interview? Well, his when he came on the debate, just show that. Give him a good hint.
Back. Sorry.
I'm surprised that Nathan Thompson would go on non-sec. Why would anybody go on to non-sec? It's like
We've been
the
on
most
non-sec,
biased
Anthony.
side.
What are you talking about?
I
We
didn't
did
say
it.
it's going to be on non-sec. I didn't say that.
We did it.
Okay,
What are you
heard
talking
it.
about? You, me, Chris. Were you there, Auntie? Gone. I think it was just you, me, and Chris, wasn't it, Anthony?
Yeah, I think so.
So why would
And let's
anybody?
not forget
Well,
what happened. The host, Mick, what was his name? Steve McRae. Without any presentation of evidence for our side at all, he declared our evidence that we hadn't submitted to be void because Rumpus chatted for like 20 minutes about whatever debunky claims. He just chatted on and on and on and on, and we never even got to present the evidence, but it was declared void. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
yeah, they declared that it was consensus reality right at the beginning. I remember it really distinctly almost choking. Because at the time, as IPS has just been shouted out, it gets another shout out, he was talking about exactly that. So how the Globe side used consensus reality to form their worldview about us living on a sphere. And I remember hearing it on IPS's channel and thinking, nah, people don't actually behave like that, though, do they? And I kind of denied it in my own mind. And then we went, like I say, we went on second. One of the first things out of their mouth, well, yeah, absolutely. It's consensus reality. You're like, what? You having me on? You think that the group of us agreeing on something makes it real?
Says that it doesn't matter about mathematical axioms whether they're right or not. They're right because we decide that they're right, or words to that effect. I didn't know he'd said that, but when I heard that, I was like, what?
Consensus is
Just like that lady that comes, the NASA lady that says it's not okay to think the Earth is flat. Hey, really? Who the fuck are you? It's like,
Yeah.
oh man, this is insane. That's thought police type shit. 1984. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Michelle.
It sounds like
Michelle
the democratization of science.
I would like Anthony to just repeat her name so she gets named and shamed, because I agree. Who the hell does she think she is?
Michelle Thaler, her name is.
It's not
That's what I
okay
think
to
every time I hear that clip. Who the hell are you to tell anybody what it's okay to think or not? Like, are you fucking out of your mind? That shit drives me nuts.
It's a thought police here to keep everybody in check. Like, how dare you think for yourself? You know,
Took the words
other
out of my
people
mouth.
are smarter than you.
It's totally Orwellian.
Yeah.
How dare you think this? Next, it'll be your children grassing you up for a wrong think.
Marxism.
Have you noticed as well that
Marxism.
Have you noticed? I can't remember which video it is, but one of the videos out there, it starts off with the moccasin. This world is not what you think it is, and basically what he's showing is the person that he's trying to show that when they're lying to us about stuff in the news, they say certain things and they all say the exact same wording. All of them, they say the exact same wording as though it's like literally scripted. And one of the things that they cite is that it's a threat to our national security, or it's a terrorism threat if these people are able to challenge the undermines or the pinnings of our democracy. And it's really bad how they word it. It makes it sound like we're about to blow things up with bombs just because we don't think it's a ball.
Yeah,
Can I add a caveat about the Michelle Thaler assertion?
Yeah, I was just about to back you up and say the Orwellian nature of our reality is just quite shocking at the moment, and it's nice that we're at the tip of the spear in terms of exposing it. But go ahead.
When she asserts that it's not okay, she's more making a moral statement to where you're bad if you believe it. And it's like a Freudian slip that the globe system is a moral system to which they want you to behave a certain way, which is why they teach it to kids when they're very young. It's a set of beliefs intended to construct behavior of the citizenry.
Yeah, I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's about control. Well, why would they lie to us? Well, to keep us well and truly under control.
Yeah.
Yeah, in some ways, wouldn't you agree that even though the universe is supposedly infinite, it creates a very fine way of thinking about who you are and how you should behave?
Yeah, drives nihilism.
Yeah. I prefer the inverse relationship, which is universe is finite, but the soul or the is infinite.
And so
It would make sense if the people in charge want to, hide stuff from us. Like if our economy is all based on like resources, and the person that owns the most resources is the person that benefits the most. If they have like access to like land and stuff like that that we don't know about, they could be like all kinds of resources that they have that are putting them, at an advantage in comparison to everyone else. Everybody else thinks that, there's like scarcity, there's like lack of resources, when in actuality, there are people that are accumulating them and using them to their advantage. That's just my thought.
Well, are you aware of the old Oriental map that shows more continents beyond the Antarctic ring?
You're talking about the Buddhist map?
Yeah, I think that's the one.
Yeah,
you've
seen
seen
that
that
before,
map, right?
Called the Kobayashi,
Okay,
I
so-
think. Kobayashi map.
Imagine that map in your head, and then imagine all the assertions about the ice ring and Antarctica as the perimeter. And then think, well, if we could circumnavigate Antarctica and it matches the miles that are set in the globe models, and that would disprove the flat Earth, right?
No.
Does that make sense?
No, it would beg the question of an ice wall. So you've got Cook's diaries accounting for this ice wall, right? And you've got these maps, these, let's get the terminology correct, these global projections that show a wall of ice around us. Now, isn't that interesting?
Right. But my point is, if you assume that, like you said, so let's just say in your mind you're thinking there's an ice wall or there's a island of Antarctica, one or the other, if that's what you're thinking. And then somebody says, oh, well, we just circumnavigated it, and they prove it. So they circumnavigate the island of Antarctica, and they prove it to be a certain amount of miles that matches up the globe projection. Then they say, well, there is no ice wall, therefore the Earth is the globe that we've decided that the size is. But they've just defeated the presupposition of an ice wall. But what if Antarctica, that we are told, is just an island in one of those continents on the Buddhist map?
Well, exactly. It's a false dichotomy. It's there for exactly that. You really are on fire. It's that's what the false dichotomy is. So if you present it as a ice wall and then someone happens to actually circumnavigate an ice island, does that prove the other side of the false dichotomy? Absolutely not. But they'll have us argue it.
I want to add something. There's more to be discovered in this sense, and that is if somebody's going to circumnavigate, already presupposing a circle, I would like to know as they travel, or I would like them to keep track of all the angles of the entire journey.
How are you going to keep track of the angles when you've got no reference point?
No, but how do the angles add up? Are they traveling in a circle inward, outward, or is it actually a straight line? This is very important data.
You mean relative to themselves?
Well, relative to the rest of the ice wall, how is it interconnected? How are
what
all
Owen's
the
describing,
angles?
Anthony, is dead reckoning as opposed to using the stars or the magnetic field lines to navigate. So you just dead reckon, and then if you change course for any reason, you note the angle. I think that's what Armin's trying to say.
Exactly. And then you can determine geometrical fact from that. That
Honestly, I think that would be so inaccurate.
Says the man who's
No,
got a
I mean,
rectangular
we don't
looping
even know-
model. I
we
just
don't
want to
even
point
know
this
if
out.
an
Got to
ice
get this
wall
in.
exists
Hold on.
or
Hold
not.
on.
It shouldn't be hard at all because you can just
I
scan
just want to get this in. That Arwen's
And the
argument. He's going to rumpus me because he knows this is so contradictory. Your model's a rectangular looping model, Arwen. Just want to point that out to you at this stage.
Right.
So wouldn't you say that in that particular instance that those angles would be pretty meaningless?
No, because they would add up to 0 instead of minus
What?
100, minus 360 or plus 360 degrees.
You're saying you'd be ultimately travelling in a straight line?
Yes.
What a load of bollocks.
Oh, sorry, you have trouble imagining it.
Well, we don't know for a fact, for sure, whether an ice wall does exist. And even with these maps, like, how do we know how accurate they are? Like, how did they measure, the boundaries of the continents and all that stuff? How is that measured? Like, you need to be high enough in order to see like a continent in its entirety.
Right.
So
Oh, that's not true. That's not true. I'm sorry.
They do flybys mostly. Flybys
speak to
and
that.
scan it all. But they can also now use just instant 3D scanners of entire environments. So much more accurate, and you can directly input it in a direct 3D model just of the land, not presupposing anything.
I don't think they can do it that accurate though, because if they could, wouldn't Google have that a much better tolerance than plus or minus 50
I
meters?
don't think they want to do that at this point, because that might also reveal certain channels, for example, through the ice having appeared, that kind of thing. So just gonna keep it the way it is, but we could do it if we get permission to do it.
Hey, real quick to Arwen's point, whatever his assumptions of how they would prove the route was irrelevant to my point, because my point was just to set up the false dichotomy of a boundary, whereas Antarctica on the globe model is an island at the bottom, quote unquote, bottom of the sphere, whereas in some models of the flat Earth, it's an ice perimeter, which is the boundaries. Either way, it's a boundary, and it's a false dichotomy of a boundary because we don't know that it exists or what could be beyond it.
We're not sure it exists continually.
Right. So there could be, it could be a C shape, it could be an island, it could be a series of islands, and there could be continents beyond.
Yeah, and the other thing with an ice wall is that it presupposes that there's only the one sun. There may be other suns that are beyond our horizons that we can't see, but are melting the ice.
At this point, I want to say that Nathan Oakley takes no responsibility for the opinions or views expressed on this show.
Right.
That's for
Have any of you guys watched the Admiral Byrd footage?
If there's going to be another apparent sun, it's just going to be because of the layout of the angular relations of the globe of the heavens.
Well, you don't know that. You're speculating, of
If it's going
course.
to be another continent, then yeah, you might suddenly have another sun seem to appear. But yeah, the sun is not a physical thing. It's a light phenomena. So it's very strange to assume that there is literally another source.
Right, I'm going to hijack this.
If you're
I'm going
saying
to
two suns, you're already assuming that there is separate sources.
I'm going to hijack this and turn this back into something that's been relevant or brought up recently. So, Crow 777 and Chris Van Matry have both done exposés of a claimed second celestial body in close proximity to the sun. What are your opinions on this second sun?
Mine? Well, I don't think it's literally there. It's probably an interesting phenomena, but I think it's more in the category of a lens flare. Maybe not in the camera, but as part of the setup of the world. I have no other way to explain it, but I think it's
But
basically...
it doesn't act like a lens flare. It
It's
stays relative in the sky relative to the sun. Doesn't move with the camera.
Right. I'm just saying it's not the lens of the camera that is causing the lens flare comparison. It is in the sky itself.
But wouldn't that make it a sun then?
Well, that's different than a lens flare.
It's not
right?
literally... It's a second apparent sun disk, perhaps, yes.
No, I think what Arwen's saying is if you've got people that are showing skylines with atmospheric lensing, then there's no actual effect of the camera that's causing that building to look twice the size, but it's an effect of the atmosphere lensing what appears in the
No,
camera. So
but I'm
therefore,
not that kind of lens.
no. I'm just saying that in a similar way, whatever is causing that effect is a lensing effect of the sky as opposed to the camera. So twisting the camera whilst looking through a tube and saying it doesn't move, well, it might not be down to the equipment causing that flare. What Arwen's saying, I think.
I get you.
Yes. Exactly.
Concisely, I would assert that it could be one point is the projection point and one point is the dispersion point. So one
Well, what
artifact
happens
you're
if one
looking
is
at,
the source of the light and the other one is the reflection that we see?
right?
So you're saying there's a possibility we might be actually catching the actual point
Yeah.
that the sun's coming from? Who knows then? That would be cool.
Well, I'd like to see you try and approach that point then some way. See
Icarus.
If it's a source, you got to get closer to it to prove that it is an actual thing you're approaching and not just an apparition. So you know how to prove it is the source. It has to be approachable.
Yeah, I'm working on my instant transmission. Get up there.
Somebody mentioned Icarus. Who was that?
Me.
Right. So we're deterred from approaching the sun, and all of the narrative is in the heliocentric world. At least, it's impossible in terms of the distance, and even if it was possible, you'd be obliterated before you even got close to it. So, the question is, why are we being told not to approach the sun? Dun dun dun.
Meanwhile, they have
I'm telling you
satellites
to
around
do
it.
See if you can get closer. I want to see the angular size of the sun disk grow larger as you approach it, or the apparent sun, the other one, whatever. Just as you travel literally physically in the world towards what you see, I want to see it grow bigger and somehow give an indication that you're actually traveling towards an object and not just a light phenomena.
Right, we've got early 1960s or 1950s or pre-aspirations in terms of the physical bodies we see in the sky. We want to go to the moon. We want to go to the sun. We want to see what these things are, because we don't know, and we've not been there. We don't know if they're physical or not. So it's like those desires were undoubtedly prevalent, or probably even more prevalent, pre-moon hoax, pre-landing hoax. Because people have obviously got those questions. Well, we don't really know. I mean, we think it's this and that until we go there. And then they say, hey, we've gone there. There's a flag.
As far as there being like two suns in the sky, I don't think that's possible. And this is just my opinion, because I've heard a similar argument in the past where people claim that when it's nighttime, like in, I think, the northern hemisphere, and we can see the moon out in the sky, and in certain parts of the world where it's daytime, like in the southern hemisphere, and they're able to see the moon in the daytime, are they still seeing the same moon, or is it two moons that we're looking at? I just think that this points more towards like how the continents are oriented and how we don't have like an accurate image of where we're at. So we don't really know where things are in the sky because the map that we have that we're using is wrong. Like we're not really looking at stuff like the map that's been given to us is not really showing where we actually are in orientation with the stuff that we're seeing in the sky.
Okay.
Well,
There's another caveat to that.
Maybe it can't be done.
There's another caveat to that perspective.
Is just very irregular.
Possible.
Could be.
That could be possible.
So someone was trying to get some words in there, and I don't know who it was.
Theo.
Go ahead.
When you're looking at something in perspective on the ground, you'll notice that Even though it's on the left side of you at a certain distance, as it recedes in the distance, it appears to go to the right. You know, it goes towards the center of your view. So while it's physically left of you, it appears more towards the right until it reaches the center. So it will never appear more to the right of you than the center line, but it will appear to converge or move in the picture or your observation point. Now, we only have reference of things hundreds of miles away that we can verify. So if the sun and the moon are thousands of miles away, you know, our ability to discern where they physically are in relation to the perspective grid of our vision or our observation would be very hard. So for example, it could be literally 1,000 miles to your left, but because it's so many thousands of miles up, it appears to be much, much closer to you on your left than it actually would physically be. So the ability for two different people to pinpoint an object thousands of miles up of where it physically is would be near impossible.
You're right. And Jaron did talk about this a couple of years ago with his demonstration of the atmospheric dome that surrounds each person based on how our vision works. So like for each of us, the sun is going to appear in a different spot in the sky, just depending on our atmospheric dome, our personal dome. So I think that plays a role in it as well. So we're not, each of us are not getting like a full picture of where stuff is.
It's hard to say where before you know what. I mean, what is the sun? So until we actually know what it is, knowing how it presents itself to us, we only have our experience of the apparition, as Arwen would describe it, in the sky. Well, but if you don't know what it is,
and the data of the angular relations with the positions on the Earth.
And think about it this way. You know the idea that when you get a laser pen, and if you've got a cat or a dog, you can tease them on the floor with the little spot that's the focal point of the light of the laser. What's to say that we're not chasing the laser light like the cat and the dog chasing the laser light when we fire the thing on the wall? Because we're looking at a projection from something that we think's a sun that we just can't see the bigger picture of. I'm more inclined to accept that than the sun. Than the sun is 93 million mile away ball of helium, hydrogen, plasma. Because I don't think we're looking at a sun. We're looking at something that is the manifestation of the sun, but it isn't the sun. We're looking at something else.
We're looking at God's laser pen. Is that what you're saying?
Possibly, yeah.
Well,
I reckon there's somebody up there with a laser pen and we're the cat underneath chasing it.
The problem with saying that the sun is like a spotlight or like an effect of like a laser or something like that, that wouldn't factor in why we feel certain things. Like we can feel the sun rays, and that wouldn't happen if we're looking at like a hot spot from a flashlight or a laser pen. Like it wouldn't have.
A magnifying glass works with a thingy with a focal point of light, right? You can set fire to ants.
Yeah, true. But does that point of light project heat? Like if you're shining a magnifying glass on an ant, is that same spot that's burning the ant, is that like radiating heat from it?
Yeah, that's why the ant sets on fire, isn't it?
Right.
The focal point of the light creates the heat, as far as I'm aware.
Okay, in the ant example, with the magnifying glass, from the ant's perspective, what would be the sun?
The white spot in the sky that we see.
Well, yeah, but from the ant's perspective, if he looked at the magnifying glass, he would be looking at a bright spot of light shining directly at him, wouldn't he?
Which is what we see in the sky with the sun, right?
No,
right.
We don't see the dot on the ground, is the point that Theo's making.
No, if you've got a magnifying glass and you set fire to the ant doesn't see the sun, the light source. The ant sees the focal point of the light coming from the sun. He would see, like, how do I word this?
Yeah, but as a dot on the ground, you're comparing it to the dot on the magnifying glass itself and saying, well, that dot on the magnifying glass, as it focuses it to a point on the ground, is equivalent to the sun in the sky, but it isn't.
So, all right, so put a dome over the ant and then put the focal point onto the dome, and then who's to say that the ant can't see the underside of the light from the dome that he's seeing the underside of?
Yeah, I agree. That's certainly a possibility. Yeah, I totally agree, but it's just one of a million different possibilities that could be, and we don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Nathan, your point about the light spot on the ground that the ant would see, so there's one point where he looks up at the magnifying glass and sees the light coming through the magnifying glass. But then the ant can also look on the ground and see the hot spot on the ground. But there are visual evidences of a hot spot caused by the sun.
Yeah, I realised that as I was saying it.
So I mean, they're pretty comparable visually.
Yeah. Shout out to MG42 Pillbox. So the other day he had his plane journey, and we played it out on the Hangout. And in his plane journey, and I've seen this myself, you can see the edge of the hotspot where it gets dark. So yeah, there is a hotspot on the ground. So I take it back, Anthony. Excellent comparison. I'm an idiot.
But Arwen brought up God's laser beam. So I could segue into pretty simply what the Bible says that the sun and the moon are. And that is, it just simply says that they're lights
within the firmament.
Greater and lesser light.
It says what they are to a degree. It says they are great lights, a greater light and a lesser light, and that they're within the firmament, and that they run circuits according to their course.
Also posed as a question, who can track the path of light?
Yep. It also includes in there in Job about the shape of the earth, and he says, who can measure it? Who can measure the earth and declare the bounds? Tell me if you know. This would be God talking to Job in the book. He's like, if you can measure the earth, you let me know, buddy.
And with that, I will say, if you are watching this on the Nathan Oakley premiering stream, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. However, if you are watching this on Nathan Oakley 1980, then unfortunately this is where we bid you farewell. A massive thank you to all who tuned in live, watched, smashed the super chat, shared, commented, subscribed, all that good stuff. Also a massive thank you to all of today's debating panel for making this debate possible. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Oh, they didn't teach that in school?
No.
Oh, then I wonder how they're using this to find out triangles with only one value.
Teach what?
I remember being told that you need to know you need to know 3 of the angles. Well, 2 angles and a length, or 2 lengths and an angle.
Yeah, you need at least 2 values.
No, you need 3.
Sorry,
Can't
teach
do it
what?
with 2.
They did teach Pythagoras in school. What are you saying they didn't teach?
The version of
Hold on. I know the concept, but the thing is that only works if you have an absolute confirmation that whatever you're sizing up is more than just an angular phenomena, that it has a literal position. You have to be certain of that. And on paper, of course, you're certain of it because you can see it right there.
Yeah, but it's worse than that, Arwen. Arwen, it's worse than that. What you said is correct, but it's worse than that. They don't even have 2 values.
Hey, this is Anthony's point. Correct. They don't have either.
Right.
They're working the Pythagorean theorem as if they already know A, B, and C. They're not finding A, B, and C. They're putting in A, B, and C.
Okay. Well, that has nothing to do with Pythagorean math.
Right, they don't know the size, they
Squared,
don't know the distance.
Squared plus C squared equals C squared. That's how you do it. So, square them, you add them up, and that's how you get C squared. So, one value, B squared is the second value, C squared is your conclusion of the third value that's missing. So, you need B squared in order to get C squared. They don't have B squared, they only have A squared.
Correct. And A squared is based on whether you assume it's a sphere, like Eratosthenes did. Don't forget, Eratosthenes lived 250 years before Christ, and I want to know how Eratosthenes knew it was a sphere. And that if you assume that Venus is the same size as Thingy, then you get the sun.
No, that's not right, Alwyn. No, he assumed the Earth was a sphere, based on Aristarchus. So the narrative, you can look at every one. They always say it. He assumed the Earth is a sphere. So the sticks in the ground example isn't them giving. It isn't forming the presupposition. That's Aristarchus.
Okay, mix them up.
Hey,
And the
Chris,
other thing as well
how you
is
doing?
Fight the Flat Earth is claims. You know this George Musa thing that's outstanding, the interview, right? Fight the Flat Earth claims that not only
No,
am
I don't.
wrong,
No, I don't. Please tell me, because I don't. I was asking you in chat the other day, and you just kept ignoring me.
Oh.
Who the hell is Chris Musa? What the hell is a missing interview? I'd have no idea what you're on about. If it's related to Fight the Flat Earth, I don't watch. I don't know what you're talking about. You have to contextualize it.
Okay, so the assertion is that I was wrong with regards to gravity. Gravity, according to current science, is Einsteinian's curvature of space-time. However, Fight the Flat Earth, and he's not the only one, but he's pushing it heavily at the moment. He pushes that gravity is a force. Now, if you're going to push that, then you're applying Newtonian principles, which by 1920 was generally accepted to be surpassed, replaced, antiquated by Einsteinian principles. But Fight the Flat Earth doesn't want this to die, and he wants to be able to. He wants to be allowed to cite forces for gravity, and I object because the science does not say that you can. The science currently states that Einstein, the curvature of space-time, is what causes things to change their locality, what they would describe as down. And it doesn't. It literally says he snaps the wand in two in terms of Newtonian's magic that attracts forces of mass towards each other. It literally replaces that. Now, Fight the Flat Earth doesn't want that. And I cited a document from George Musa, and George Musa gave two documents that said the same thing, that Einstein replaced Newton principles. But Fight the Flat Earth doesn't want it because he's been pushing it a lot recently. He's got to stand by it. So he made a claim that he would interview George Musa, and George Musa would tell me that I've misunderstood, misinterpreted, lied about, or whatever. But the problem is I gave additional documentation from George Musa and Caltech and Brian Cox, and there was one other, and I can't remember what it is now, that basically supported what George Musa originally said in his documentation, but does not support George Musa currently, according to Fight the Flat Earth. Now, I've forgotten where I was going with this now, but the point was, Fight the Flat Earth. So he claims that with gravity, I've lost where I'm going. I'm sorry.
He's claiming it's a force, and he wants it to be a force and apply it as a force. That's what he's out trying to prove.
Yeah, but we were talking about in the context of what was the previous topic we were talking about?
Who is George Musa?
Eratosthenes. Yeah,
oh, right.
Curvature, right. So basically, the curvature of the Earth, Eratosthenes, and all that. Fight the Flat Earth, because he thinks that he can measure the distance to the sun, and he applies the principles known as from Eratosthenes and things like that. It means that you're already not begging the question. You are. What's the words I'm looking for? I'm losing my words. You're simply regurgitating the work from previous people. We're questioning the work from previous people. We don't want you to regurgitate their work. We understand that Eratosthenes assumed that the Earth was a sphere. We get that. But we want to know, how did he know that the Earth was a sphere back then before Christ? Because there is no way of knowing unless you've got some divine knowledge that we don't currently have. And Fight the Flat Earth thinks he's got it. So just make sure that you're all aware that Fight the Flat Earth's got this upcoming interview that's due, where he's got to get somebody that's cited in Scientific America to state that I've got it wrong when his own work supports what I'm saying. I'm citing his own work, not just once, twice, on the one point. So
you're citing this George Musa guy in terms of his definition that gravity is not a force. Now I'm going to do a couple of shout outs as well. So Ballbusters number 4, John goes through this in great detail with citations. Not a force. So check it out, Ballbusters 4 live, the nonsense of gravity. There's also going to be another Ballbusters this Saturday. So I think it's 2 p.m. Central Time, which is 8 p.m. UK time. And that will be the second half of wave-particle duality, which will be about the double slit experiment and the delayed choice quantum eraser experiments, respectively. So they'll get covered on Saturday's number 7, Ballbusters Live. I don't know what the title will be yet. Maybe it'll just be called the Quantum Eraser or something similar. But nevertheless, the one that I want to refer to now is Ballbusters 4, The Nonsense of Gravity, and it's gone through in great detail with citations, just like Anthony Scott. Interesting that the person he's claiming to interview, now I get it, is a guy you're citing that backs your claim of the current heliocentric nonsense of gravity. Not that gravity is real.
So that document that I often cite within that John cites from, snapping the wand in two, was written by George Musa. But Fight the Flat Earth thinks that I'm misrepresenting what Musa said. And I'm like, well, I have got basic comprehension skills. Yeah, I might make mistakes periodically, and I'm all right with that. I understand that I'm not the font of all knowledge. But when someone says he snaps the wand in two and he's referring to Newtonian's magic, that is the attractive forces between masses, I'm pretty certain I've got that right when he says he snaps it in two, because we know that he's clearly not supporting the assertion that Newton's gravity was a force. He's clearly contrasting it. But Fight the Flat Earth is doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down. So make sure you keep your eyes open for it coming up, because the minute he releases this so-called interview, which I don't actually think he's going to be able to do, because I don't think George Musa is going to side with him on it. But even if he does, the minute he does, I've got a really good hangout that I'm going to have to do with Nathan and John and co, because we're just going to rip this nonsense apart. It's going to be brill.
Absolutely. Not heard much from John. He's been on the call the whole time. Maybe he's getting food.
I'm shy.
Yeah, where are the Globers today? It's awfully quiet here.
Yeah, it has been.
Hey,
They're
Nathan,
still
I want to.
battered, recovering.
They're gathering on Jose's doing rain dances for curvature.
Yeah,
They've got to gather on Jose's though, because basically, although Jose might be the current flavour of the month or whatever, he's actually about 18 months behind where we're at, because he's just having the arguments that we've had historically, like a long time ago. So I mean, yeah, we've been there, done that, and forgotten about it now. Let's still prove curve, axial rotation, gravity, all the things that you need to have if you live in a sphere, because there is no evidence for them.
Well, meanwhile, they're proving Rory wrong. So you've got, Rumpus on there, adamant that you don't need perspective in the geometric calculations for what we are comparing in visual perspective.
Yeah, you absolutely do, Rumpus. Stop lying to people. You absolutely do.
Yeah, but my point being that he's declaring, you don't need perspective in our calculations, while meanwhile Rory's saying, prove that there's no perspective. It's like maybe Rumpus should try and claim the $5,000 from Rory.
He's messaged me and he says that I'm wrong, apparently.
Who's messaged you?
Rory. He says,
no, Rory, he's
okay.
not wrong.
Well, if you just want to skip straight to the conclusion, you're mistaken in quite a few ways. I'd be happy to explain this to you if you're ever feeling like going through it in a hangout.
Yeah, Rory, there's a link in chat, mate. You can join right now and you can have it out and we'll laugh at you when you lose.
Yeah, take it up with Kosho, Wiggles, Bob the Fallacy Guy, and Rumpus, all of whom make it very clear the geometric, bit of a giveaway in the title, calculations for Earth curve don't need perspective, according to them. That's what they declare. They're on your side. So perhaps, rather than contacting Ranty, maybe square things with your own side first. Namely, Wiggles, Kosho, who's told us we're stupid for thinking you need to include perspective. Maybe I should cut all these people's declarations out for you, Rory. Those people being the ones on your own side who actually understand the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking curve calculator. Now, we've not been saying that for nothing, Rory. We've got all of your own side to admit it doesn't have perspective, and it's even labelled as such. Geometric, you fuckwit.
But again, though,
he
will never admit it.
We already knew he was never going to pay anyway. So.
Well, at this point, I'm just going to... Let's just pour scorn on him then. Rory, you are fucking stupid. How dumb do you need to be when your own side's telling you it's not got perspective in it and defending the fact that it doesn't need it for you to contact Ranty and tell him that he's wrong? No, you're just a fucking moron, Rory.
And you're a bit creepy as well.
You creepy fucker. Contacting it. Is it just because you secretly need a little bit of narcissistic supply from Ranty? So by being wrong, you just want to get close to Ranty? Ew. Gross. Creepy as. I think he's deliberately done this just to get close to you, Ranty, man. I'd be creeped the fuck out if I were you.
I am creeped.
He seems to be throwing like shit everywhere, though, doesn't he? Like doing hate videos of Nathan, hate videos of Jaren, hate videos of anybody that'll take a bite out of his cherry. But I mean, the reality is the guy's clearly new to it. He doesn't realize the background and the history to it. It's been fought over ad nauseum over the years, and he's new to it, and he thinks that it doesn't exist. And it's like, well, you're just being ignorant, aren't you? Really? Why don't you just come on and ask us? We're not here for the fun of it. We realize that we're being lied to.
He just doesn't realise yet. He's too dumb to realise. Because he obviously either just wants a piece of Ranty's ass, you know, wants to sniff it and have people contacting him and arguing with him because he just likes it. Or he's too dumb to realise. So he's either thick or creepy. Either way.
Still want my cash though.
Okay. Hey, you
That's what
guys
he
know
wants, Ranty. He wants you chasing him for his money.
The perspective was missing.
What he wants, Ranty, he wants you to chase him for it.
Don't need to. The video says it all. The video proves I'm right. I'd like to see how he's going to get out of explaining it. That you can't actually physically resolve the top of the tower because the angle's too small. As with the diffraction limit.
Yeah, you got a hat tip from Good Times for All, your co-claimant.
Everyone wants a piece.
I was impressed actually, Ranty. I watched that video and I wasn't expecting you to have a new angle on it. No pun intended. But that was great. You know, really, really clever.
Indeed. And I don't see how he can get out of it. I don't see what argument he can bring to the table that will negate the claim that I made, that you physically couldn't be able to see the flag at the top of the tower, given those parameters that are included in the video.
Yeah, it's just such a pity Zach got there before you. But oh well.
But he didn't. He did it before his video. I specifically made this for him, you see. So there you go, Nate.
Yeah, Zach did it last week, Ranty.
Did he?
Yeah.
Damn.
In fact, it might actually been the week before.
What was his
moved on now.
Can we go through what he did?
He did the application of the Rayleigh criterion, the minimum, the same point you made.
Oh, I'll have to watch his video.
You just contextualize it. I'm not, how can I say this? It's not better. It's just different. But you contextualize it using the calculation based on what they say should be seen at a given distance and the angular resolution of what's left over being impossible to see. Well, that's a clever spin, but it doesn't change that Zach's point was basically the same, and he approached Rory and said, it's not included, I pointed this out a year and a half ago, here's my video. I don't know, just the fact that it's a geometric calculation, it's like, you've got to be properly stupid to put that sort of bet up, or put that sort of claim on the table. It just, how dumb have we got to be?
Ignorant. I don't think it's dumb. I think he's just ignorant, or he's just a whore for creating attention for himself.
Yeah, that's what I said. Creepy as or dumb.
Well, you also got to consider that these guys are stuck in a feedback loop. Like, they assume that the globe is the reality, so therefore everything that supposedly is a proof of the globe must also be reality. So if they look
Gary
at an
Awesome
image
effect.
and they don't see something, they assume it's obstruction. They then go to a calculator that says something would be obstructed, and they go, well, that's proof right there.
Yeah, it's the Gary Awesome effect. Well, we already know it's a sphere, so automatically assuming it's a sphere is no problem, right? You idiots.
Right, but they're also automatically assuming that visual data loss is only caused by a physical obstruction.
Yeah. I've just remembered what my point was with Fight the Flat Earth. He's made a further claim, which I'm going to challenge him on if I get a chance to catch up with him. He's made the further claim that he's going to have this week dedicated to me for some reason. I think what he's going to do is dedicate the week to me and divert away from the fact that he's made a claim that he can't substantiate. But he's now made a secondary claim, a further claim, And apparently, there's he's going to do some kind of test or measurement or something with this George Musa, and he's basically going to repeat or replicate the Eratosthenes sun angle thing. He's going to basically claim that the Earth's a sphere based on the angles to the sun. Well, if he does that, just watch this space, because there's going to be a really devastating response to him if he does. Looking good.
I sent you a link, Tony, in the side chat. Or did I send it you on Skype? I might have sent it you on Skype, actually. Let me just check. Yes, I did. So this is where the Flat Earth says that he's never actually done an experiment. And
Well,
yet
I listened to it.
He has.
I listened to it. I'll tell you what he says. Just hang on a sec. 22.
322.
Yeah. Open transcript.
Man, you are all over this, aren't you?
Yeah.
He says, have you ever analysed your own feelings and asked yourself why if a flat earther, if it makes you so angry, can you point me to one experiment that you've done yourself that demonstrated curve? And his answer is, well, apart from the fact that I've not done any test myself means nothing. That's not how science works. Well, science actually does work by that. You actually repeat experiments, for starters. That's the point of science. But he says that he hasn't done anything himself that demonstrates curve. So if he admits that he's never done anything himself that demonstrates curve, what is his actual position then? Because he must be a cook, right? You just recite the official narrative.
Yeah, Gary Awesome syndrome. Well, we automatically know it's a sphere. Therefore, going forward, using any example that automatically assumes it's a sphere is all good.
Yeah, so again, let me just remind people, right? Fight the Flat Earth is going to do some kind of Eratosthenes-based observation of the sun with angles and stuff. I hope he does that, because that's just going to kill him. Because I've got something better than what he's got.
It's funny. You would think if he was bored one day, instead of doing something insane like trying to measure the distance of the sun, you might maybe want to measure the curvature of the land that you're standing on. But, I guess he went for the harder challenge.
One involves a telescope, so it's cool, right? Telescopes are cool.
Cool, man.
Like Bart Simpson with his karate obsession and then his astronomy obsession. All short-lived fads.
Maybe we should send him to figure out the next black hole, since he's that good.
What do you think of that black hole, Tony?
I think that if you believe that, you'll believe anything.
Believe what? It's just a picture of something in the sky, right?
It's just an out-of-focus picture of what could be anything, a number of different things that would create the same illusion that you could make for £5. You could go into your garage and you could smoke a cigarette, and I'm sure that you would make the cigarette end at some point look something similar like that, and with a bit of After Effects and, bit of Photoshop, you could make it look exactly the same.
Right, you presented
Nathan,
to
would you
Anthony.
mind?
Yeah.
Am I on?
You are?
All right, so I'll just give you a taster for Fight the Flat Earth's claim. I've heard him say to his own subs that he's going to be doing some collaboration with George Musa himself to do with repeating the Eratosthenes experiment. Well, guess what? There's a 2,200-year-old inquiry-based hands-on experiment, said loosely, in today's science classrooms, dated 2015. Now, this is peer-reviewed in the World Journal of Education, right? This is better citation than George Musa and Fight the Flat Earth can ever achieve, right? It's stated, right? And what I want to focus on, or just bring to your attention as the audience of Nathan's show, is the conclusion. Now, in the conclusion in this, it reads, inquiry-based hands-on experiments in classrooms require simple constructs to satisfy a student's curiosity. The ancient Eratosthenes experiment, observation we'll call it, provides an excellent inquiry-based hands-on approach for today's students to conceptualize and solve an abstract problem that even contradicts everyday conceptions. Now, there's a colon here, and then it says, we all know that the Earth is round, although it appears flat. So basically, this tells you that this whole document is assuming that the Earth's a round ball, right? Because we all know it's a ball. So because we all know it's a ball, then we're going to do this and base it and assume that it's a sphere. It's a bit of a problem when Eratosthenes doesn't know whether it's a sphere and he just calculates and believes that it's a sphere. And then children in 2015 then repeat his assumption. And they literally put the words in here. We all know that the Earth is round, although it appears flat. Well, I mean, it's round on both models as well, for starters. So let's not forget round is a bad word to use here. They should be using the word sphere. But it's like they're just literally admitting that they all know that the Earth is round, but it appears flat.
Yeah, I said it on
I
said it on the live show. You won't find any examples that cite Eratosthenes as actually proving the Earth is a sphere. They'll always declare that the assumption is made when he does his sticks and shadows. So it's always based on the presupposition. So the Aristarchus thing was relatively new to me, and Pete Shea had been going on about Aristarchus, and he never actually mentioned the significance of it, which kind of peeved me a little bit when I actually looked into it. And I'm like, wow, this is much more significant. And it was a bit like you. I sat on it for quite a long time, waiting for somebody to come in and mention it, and then it was Kosho that did. It was like, great, I've been waiting for this for ages.
Oh, you're still recording?
Yeah, it's the after show.
It's okay.
Why?
Yeah, I can't wait for him to bring out this stuff with Musa. Musa's going to commit professional suicide if he supports Fight the Flat Earth.
But why would he? Has he got an agreement in principle from this? What's his name again? Musa.
Well, he claims that he's been in direct communication over Discord, and that may or may not be true. I don't really give a shit. What I'm interested in is, will he actually commit to it online in front of everybody that Fight the Flat Earth is right and I'm wrong, when his own work twice supports what I claim? I'm literally reading back his work. That's where it's come from. I've cited him. It's the one that John uses all the time as well.
Well, if I was Mr. General Public guy, right? To me, Brian Cox is a name that I would know, and not George Musa. So even if he gets George Musa to come back on what he said himself, that he wrote down in the article himself, well, he still got to go against Mr. Brian Cox over there, saying gravity is definitely not a force, and Einstein is saying that the Earth is actually moving up to meet the apple. So he could have fun with George Musa.
I know I can, yeah.
I meant him. Fight the Flat Earth.
Does Fight the Flat Earth also assert that one is mathematically derived from the other?
I'm not sure.
Maybe I'm thinking of someone else. It's because I'm going on second-hand information about these people.
But don't they always say that one more time? Einstein describes it.
Say that one more time, Nathan.
I said, did Fight the Flat Earth assert that one is mathematically derived from the other? That being Cavendish.
Yeah, he did. Yes, he did. He's a moron, just like all the rest of them. This guy couldn't pass 5th grade general science. Neither could George Musa. Let's get back to this Eratosthenes sticks. Eratosthenes didn't use sticks.
Wells.
Well,
where'd the sticks come from?
That's just what they parrot.
This is a joke. Any primary documents from Eratosthenes? No. They're from secondary sources, Clabo and some other nutbag. It wasn't an experiment. These people don't know what experiments are.
Hold on, John. You're off the rails straight away. So we're talking about Cavendish/Newtonian gravity and Einsteinian gravity. So we've got pseudo-Riemannian 4-space and Euclidean 3-space. And my question was, did Fight the Flat Earth assert that one is mathematically derived from the other?
Yeah, he did it on the show. On Tony's debate.
Right. So why is that significant? I was going to say it, but I'd rather you did. Now you've piped up.
Yeah, you already said it. I mean, there's big problems. Like, they're both mutually exclusive. One's allegedly a law. The other one's allegedly a theory. They're both neither law nor theory, but let's just say they are. Scientific theories don't explain laws, because if they did, then it wouldn't be a law anymore. That's one. Newtonian gravity is a force. Einsteinian gravity is not a force, obviously. You got Newtonian gravity in Euclidean 3 space, and Einsteinian gravity is pseudo-Riemannian 4 space. And last of all, Newtonian gravity is instantaneous actions at a distance, and Einsteinian gravity is limited to the speed of light.
For more information, see Ballbusters number 4, The Nonsense of Gravity.
Hey guys, what's this thing about this Notre Dame? I mean, why is everybody predicting that it's some kind of prediction or something?
What, the
cathedral
burning?
Yes.
I don't know. Are you saying that Nostradamus predicted that the cathedral would burn? I don't know what you're saying. What are you implying?
Well, it seems that there's a lot of talk.
I get what you mean. There's a lot of talk about the timing of it burning and being it's like Holy Week and other things happening. Like it's just a weird event, and it's been standing for like I don't know how many years, 800 or something like that. So yeah.
Yeah. So what is the timing with it, etc.? You know, what is it? Was it burnt down on purpose?
I'm sure they'll never say that.
Well, we already know what the narrative is.
I'm still asking for a forensics investigation as to were there any helicopters flying around before the fire started. How did the fire department eventually figure out caused the fire? What?
Yeah, this has already been formed. The narrative's already set. So it's a construction accident. It's construction workers have caused the fire by accident. That's the narrative already. Before any investigation. No, that doesn't matter. This is the mainstream media we're talking about.
True that. I want to know the real forensics results.
Right, you won't get that. You'll get whatever the mainstream media tells you. Currently, it's just a construction accident.
I'd like to get back to the George Musser. You call him Mooser. I don't know what the hell his name is. Is he supposed to do a live show with Fat the Flat Earth?
That was my bad.
I don't know. He claims he's going to do an interview. I don't know what he means by interview. It might just be a Skype hangout or a Discord hangout. I don't know, but I just can't wait to see what he does because he's either fucked for agreeing with Craig or he disagrees with Craig and show Craig up.
I don't know what he's gonna do because he's already stated his position, which everyone knows the position anyway. We need this George Mooser. I need to take a shot at this guy. Fate or Fat the Flat Earth. Mr. Hypothesis is an explanation, and in the next breath, a hypothesis isn't an explanation. I need to take a shot at this George Mooser. He's a astrophysicist. He's kind of popular. George Mooser, you are a clown, sir. And John, I challenge you personally on this channel, me and you. Right?
John, you know who George Mooser is?
Yes, I know who he is. I challenge you, sir, to please provide scientific evidence for your spinning ball religion. I think you're a clown. I think you represent clowns. And I've about had enough. So, not Fat the Flat Earth, not his debate show. Let's pick a neutral debate platform. Let's find one. Me and you, clown show. Let's end this. Okay? Sick playing this friggin' game with these clowns.
And with that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of today's debating panel for making this after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in the Nathan Oakley premiering stream for tuning in, hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, all that good stuff. If you need to keep up to date with the community debate, then go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!